Hello and welcome to Back to Basics Part 2. This is the second of a set of 3 videos that I'm making on basics in bow technique. The first one was about the large arm movements, upper half of the bow, lower half of the bow, and the whole bow. And this one is about the small finger movement that we need for so many bowings. We need that for smooth bow changes, particularly at the frog. We need it for good détaché, and we need it particularly for spiccato and nearly all bouncing bowings. To learn these small finger movements, the best way to learn them is by learning the so-called finger bowing. That's a bowing which is only done with the fingers, and it's an exercise. It's not something which one ever has to do in this form in repertoire, but that way one learns to move the fingers. You start, A string is a good idea to start. Put the bow onto the A string about in the middle of the bow, and then curl your fingers and bend your thumb. You get a small up bow that way. It's very small. And then release. You get a small down bow. When you release, don't stretch your fingers all the way, because your fourth finger, which is the shortest one, will be locked if you stretch it all the way, and you're going to need to bend it again. So only release, stretching the fingers so much that your fourth finger, which is the shortest one, is not completely stretched. Not completely stretched, almost, but not completely. So again, put the bow in the middle of the bow on the A string, curl your fingers and bend your thumb to get a small up bow. And then release again. Stretch your fingers, but not too much. And then curl them again. And release. That is the finger bowing. It by nature doesn't sound very good, but of course try to make it sound as good as possible. That leads us to the next step, because the next step is to do this movement a bit more fluent. So you again start in the middle of the bow. A string is a good string to start. Practice it on all strings though, but start on the A string. And now when you curl your fingers and bend your thumb and release again, try to make the movement more fluid. Not like this. That's a good way to start, but try to make it more loose and more fluid. So that you have a more flowing movement going. Practice that on all strings. And practice that in scales as well. Because as soon as you're playing a scale, some of your concentration has to go to what the left hand is doing, so you're working at automating this movement. Very important is to only use your fingers. No arm, no wrist, just the fingers. And feel how the fingers can move the bow. It's only a very small bowing because your fingers can't move that far because they're not as big as your arm. But feel what it's like to have just the fingers move the bow. Because that's the feeling you have to remember when you integrate the small movements with the big movements. The next step is going to be doing the finger bowing, wandering slowly towards the frog. So you start in the middle again and you do the finger bowing. And then by taking a little bit more up bow than you do down bow, that will bit by bit transport you towards the frog. See, I'm using a bit more up bow than down bow. And that's bringing me closer to the frog. And do this until you get all the way to the frog. It's very nasty down here because the bow is so much heavier here than it is in the middle. So as you move along, as you're gradually approaching the frog, you're going to have to carry more and more of the bow weight. So one good thing to do is to do the finger bowing in the air with the bow about 1 centimeter above the string, because that way you're carrying all the bow weight. And then you can gradually lower it until it touches the string, and then lower it a little more until you get the sound you want. Because if you have too much weight on the string, it'll scratch. So as you approach the frog, carry the bow more and more, and to get a feeling for carrying it, do the finger bowing in the air a little bit at the frog, because if you can do it in the air, then it's easier once the bow is on the string. Practice that a lot, because particularly at the frog is where we need the finger bowing most often. So wander towards the frog by using a little bit more up bow than down bow, and when you get to the frog, play the finger bowing there. The next step is the same thing in the other direction. You start in the middle again, and then you wander towards the tip by using a little bit more down bow than you use up bow. That will transport you towards the tip. And you do that until you reach the tip. And then play the finger bowing there a little bit. Notice how you have to add a little bit of weight when you're at the tip, because the bow is light there. The finger bowing is not an easy bowing to learn, simply because we're not used to moving only the fingers and doing that in such a controlled manner. So it takes a bit of getting used to. You also have to watch out that you're not accidentally using your arm and not noticing it. So you really have to feel, what does it feel like when only my fingers are moving the bow? And remember that feeling and search for that feeling the next time you practice it. Be patient, give yourself time. It's one of the most important motions you have to learn for bow technique. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy your practicing.